Well, thank you for coming to this wonderful, cheery, bright weather day here in the Twin Cities. I'm sure you've heard plenty of weather jokes all day, so I won't add another one. Once again, for those of you that weren't here this morning, I'm Doug Bauernschmidt. I am the Professional Development Manager at AVI Systems. I'm here to tell you that if you want CTS credits for this particular course, we have a sign-up sheet over here. I need your name, your email address so I can send out the test and the certificate to you. Yes, there is a test. Yes, you should pass it pretty easily. With that, I will turn it over to Craig Frankenstein, our Digital Media Practice Manager.
Thank you. All right, so I'm assuming, based on your attendance here, that you were so fascinated with the title or you work with digital media, one of the two. But either way, you're in the right place for the next 45 minutes or so. I'm going to start. Doug already talked about the RU credit, so we understand that. Form's over there. I'm going to start by going over the agenda. It's pretty simple today. There's really four things that I'm going to talk about. First, what is digital media? Let's define what it is compared to other elements. The term hasn't been around forever, so let's really understand what we're calling digital media, what it really is, and where did it come from? How did it evolve into what we have today? And let's talk about today, how we use it, and then we're going to talk about tomorrow. What's it going to look like? What is technology bringing us? What do we see on the horizon that's going to change how we're taking digital media in and delivering it? So right from the top, what is digital media? Well, we look at it as communication from one to many over electronic devices. And this is really different than maybe the earlier presentation you saw where Rob was talking about Skype and Zoom and WebEx. Okay, there's a big dividing line in the sand. That's a little different. That's more like a conversation. All right, if we're talking about Skype, I call you because we need to discuss something. And we talk back and forth, and maybe there's another individual that suddenly needs to be brought in. Now we're looking at three little boxes on our screen, and there's three people talking over mediocre quality video. That's a conversation. That's many to many. All right, that's UC. That's unified collaboration. We need that. Organizations use that every day, and they still need that. But they also have the one-to-many need. And this is much more about messaging, communication, and even storytelling. So we use this from a corporate perspective, but we also use it on a consumer level. Think about how we consume movies and videos and things like that. A lot of our knowledge comes that way. We're taking it over electronic devices, most of the time something that has a video screen on it. And a couple of examples that you see here, you can walk past a big giant dynamic display device and it has active television on it, and on the bottom it might have the weather scrolling across, it might have traffic information. Okay, that's digital media. Think about the message that's coming across. That's what we're looking at right there. It's not the display technology so much as the message that we're trying to convey, what we want to communicate. All right, we also have the live side of it as well. In the center, I put streaming and IPTV. What about when there's an executive in the organization? He needs to get his message out. Could be a quarterly all-hands meeting, and we're broadcasting to everyone in the organization. We need that message to go out. It's a one-to-many. Doesn't matter if the employee is sitting in a conference room, if they're in a cafetorium. Maybe you're traveling that day. We still need to be able to deliver, communicate that message to the intended audience regardless of where they are. So digital media is sort of broadcasting for the new generation. So just remember, one to many, that's really the dividing line, but it's always back down to the content. So we see it in different forms, and there's a lot of elements to it. Over on the right, it says workflow, and you see a bunch of pictures. And really what that represents is there's a behind-the-scenes component to digital media as well. Let's say we have signage in our lobby and we want to convey messages. Those messages don't create themselves. Someone has to think about it, get approval to create that message, then that element has to be prepared. It has to be put somewhere. There's a process for approval. How do we know that we can use this? How long are we allowed to say this? Someone or some process has to be in charge of that. That's really the workflow side. So now this becomes kind of a big ecosystem. We're creating messaging because we need to get the message out. We need to tell the stories. We need to have this content. We need to find the content. We need to make sure it's approved. And then it comes down to the technology or the display or the device. So that whole thing wrapped together is kind of the ecosystem around digital media. Lots of shapes, flavors, several different ways to do it. And I'm going to assume that most of you are involved in some form of that, so some of this probably resonates with what you do. So let's step back now and talk about where it came from. Now that we know what it is, the one-to-many, let's talk about where we are today and how we got here. Okay? So today we're over on the right-hand side. We have big, giant, beautiful 4K displays. We have our iPads with Netflix loaded on, and we can watch movies wherever we want, or maybe just with our cell phone. Or it might just be the dynamic displays like I was talking about, where you can have real-time information being fed to, whether it's employees or customers, general public. This is where we are. But not that long ago, we were more on this side. And if we take a look at the history going way back, I threw a couple of funny ones up here. In the 1830s, the telegraph revolutionized long-distance communication. Think about that. A series of dots and beeps, somebody on the other end with a headphone on, listening to this, writing down letters and words and sentences, turning this into messages. Okay? It's unthinkable today. There's no way we would participate in that. That lasted for about 100 years. That's how people did it. And then in the 1940s, the NTSC standard came out for television. Black and white television, 525 beautiful lines of resolution. You're laughing. It's funny, but it really wasn't that long ago. 10 years after that, NBC broadcast the Rose Bowl parade for the first time in living color, and that changed everything. So in the 50s, color television came out, and at the time, that little 15-inch set that you're looking at there was $1,000. In today's dollars, that's about 10 grand. So imagine paying $10,000 for a 15-inch set that you had to get up and walk over and flip a dial to change the channel on. And maybe you had 2 or 3 channels to pick from. That was in the 50s. Now fast forward, I remember watching television on sets like that, not in the 50s, I'm not that old, but I remember watching it, and I remember that through the Flintstones pictures up here, because I remember laughing at that thinking, wow, think about the prehistoric era and how rough it must have been back then to do things that way, the way the Flintstones did. And in reality, I was kind of living over in this column with VHS tapes and paper magazines and newspapers. That's how I was getting my content. Or terrestrial TV, where I had to sit down in a room on Saturday morning, because that's the only time that the Flintstones were on, and sit behind the set and make sure that I was there at 9 in the morning or 10 in the morning, whenever that was. That's how I got that messaging. That was the only way. So you think about how far back the technology, the Flintstone technology was for me when I was a kid, and jump to today, and it almost seems like what I did when I was a kid is the prehistoric era. It almost seems that far apart. So things like VHS, paper magazines, how about printed manuals? When's the last time you saw that? We don't even do that anymore. Everything has been migrated over to digital. Okay? I used to get skiing magazine and guitar player and all that stuff delivered to my house. Now it's an electronic thing. I get an email that says, hey, the new issue of Macworld's out. Click on your iPad, it's already there. And you can watch it, flip through it on a plane. The way we do things has just significantly changed because of the evolution of technology. We've created this, and we've chosen these mediums to consume our content. This is what we want. This is what the population is asking for. So within the last 10 years, think about this, high definition has really finally been adopted. Okay? Came out a long time ago, but within the last 10 years, I think everybody's pretty much migrated over. That means we use this 525 line standard definition television format for about 70 years. Imagine if we took the same HD set that you have right now and said, we're going to keep this for about 70 years. I hope you like it. You're going to like it, your kids are going to like it, and your kids' kids are going to like it. That's what we're going to use. We're not going to develop beyond that. But that's really how long the standard definition television standard lasted. In fact, we still support it today. And I'll show some metrics coming up of how much content's being created at HD, 4K, where we're going. but we still have to support legacy content. It's still there. If we have footage that's shot in SD, we can't get rid of it and we can't magically make it HD. We're still supporting it decades later. Now, if you go into a store today, you're going to see mostly 4K. Does anybody have a 4K set at home? Nobody? One? Couple? And so based on what I know about Comcast, my cable provider, I don't know that I even have 4K. Are you using Netflix, or how are you getting your content?
Netflix does have some 4K content, but right now it's not too much.
Not too much content, exactly. So the interesting thing, the manufacturers want you to buy 4K sets. The content's a little bit behind it. It's coming. We're doing more and more, but right now it's mostly high definition. And I was at the broadcast show last month in Las Vegas, the National Association of Broadcasters. Once a year, all the big players in broadcast get together and they talk about technology, and it's kind of the unveiling of what they're doing. So the big players like Sony, Panasonic, Grass Valley, NewTek, EVS, all of those, the big broadcast heavyweights. And it was really funny because now they're all introducing 8K. So if we think about exactly, I was laughing as well. 8K, 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 I saw it all over the place. So high definition was about 5 times the resolution of standard definition. And everybody remembers the first time you saw it, you thought, wow, that looks so good. It's so much better. It's so much more lifelike. That was a factor of 5 compared to what you were used to watching for the last 70 years. So significant increase. They finally brought it into the broadcast standards. We were able to deliver it to the homes, and everybody then finally committed to HD sets. So HD to 4K is about 4 times the resolution, four times more, okay? So 4K is really 4 HD screens all in one. 8K is that same exponential up. So it's 4K pictures all in one. And I don't think this is going to be adopted overnight. We might wait 10, 15 years before we see this. And I'm sure next year at NAB somebody will show 16K. But ultimately, if we can't get it into the home, we're not going to have that full adoption. And think about how long it took for everybody to finally break down and buy HD sets. And then programming had to be HD. So it was not an easy path. I think 4K and 8K will come quicker than HD came, but it's definitely going to be a ways out. But the technology is already there, and manufacturers are already looking down the road as to what they're going to do. So the audience has spoken, and when I say the audience, I mean the population, everybody. They want more video. We are making, creating, and consuming more and more and more video. Year over year, it's going up exponentially. It's not leveling off, it's just going up. And there's no sign of it stopping. From all of the metrics that we look at, and especially going forward with the new generations, what I represented over there, if you have anybody in your house that's that age, you'll know that this is their most common pose when you see them at home. They're staring at their device, and that's where they get their content. And usually it's music or video. That's the way that they like to consume and digest their content. That's fine. I get it. At first, I was kind of bothered by it, but I understand that this is actually what they prefer. Sometimes I'll go on my laptop to gather information, go to a website, find out what I'm looking for, and my son, who's 21, rather than go into his laptop, he would rather just pull out his phone, Google it, find something, and just right there. It's actually easier for him to look at his phone and find something than to go to his room, grab his laptop, and pull the information. So my eyes don't work that well. I can't get all that information on my phone, but I guess if you're 21, it's a lot easier. So some interesting metrics around video, and this just kind of backs up what I'm saying. Cisco, the company that owns the switches in so many of our buildings, they obviously care about video because they're kind of the conduit, the highways. How does all this information get back and forth? If we're sending all this video over a corporate network, it's passing through their switches. They're laser focused on what's coming because they need to make sure that their infrastructure can support the habits of this generation and the next generation. So some staggering statistics, in my opinion. There's a document every year that comes out called the Visual Networking Index from Cisco, and you can Google it. It's a wealth of information, and it talks all about video over a network. Private networks, corporate networks, wide area internet, all of that. And some of the numbers are just staggering. So First off, in 3 years, the number of connected devices will be 3 times the global population. So if you think about that, you know that not every human being has a connected device. So that means a lot of us have more than 3. So I'm doing it in my head thinking, okay, I have an iPhone, I have a watch, I have 2 iPads, I have a MacBook, I have a PC laptop, and I have a PC. So I have 7 connected devices, and I actually have more older computers that I just don't count because I don't use them, but I have 7 connected devices that I'm using almost every day, weekly for sure, all of them. So looking at that, I guess the 3 times the global population is fairly realistic. And in 3 years, video will be 82% of all IP traffic. Staggering. But again, if you think about the size of video compared to sending an email, I understand that. So as the video continues to grow, we're just dominating all of the traffic on the switches. And Cisco realizes that. Smartphone traffic will exceed PC traffic and account for 50% of global internet traffic by 2022. That means we're choosing this more than we're choosing our PCs. In fact, in 2018, PCs accounted for about 41% of total IP traffic. In 3 years, they will only account for 19%, cutting that number in half. And I would assume it's a generational thing. As the older generation steps out of the workforce and stops using these devices, those who went to their PCs, went to their devices, they're going to be doing, there's less and less of that, but there's going to be more and more younger generation people who don't go to the PC first. They go to their device. This is the first thing that they go to when they want to pick up information. They know how to get there, and they know that they can find the message that they're looking for and consume the content the way that they want to. Consumer video on demand traffic, VOD, will double in 3 years. VOD is great because it's whenever you want it. Again, going back to when I was watching television on a small set that I had to change a channel on, I had to be there at that time. I had to know when the show was going to be on, or I had to look at the TV guide. Remember those? Because that was the only time that you could watch a particular show. Now with video on demand, you can record the show you want, you can come back to it, you can be at home, you can be traveling, you can be on your iPad, you can be on a set, you can be wherever you want at any time. Video on demand is absolutely the way that we prefer to consume our content. So my wife will record shows and then watch them after they're done just so she can fast forward the commercials. She doesn't want to waste the time watching commercials. So she'll watch her favorite shows an hour later because she saves 7 minutes an hour. I get it. I understand that. So VR, the 2 interesting stats that I want to add in here. VR and AR will increase 12x. So VR is virtual reality and AR is augmented reality. And I'm sure you've heard of it. Many of you have probably seen it. Virtual reality is the complete, you put the headset on and you are inside basically a video game. And wherever you turn your head, it's simulating an environment, and that's where you are. But the whole thing is virtual. There's no element of reality to it whatsoever. And it's pretty interesting. You can only keep the sets on for so long, and then you've got to kind of give yourself a break. It's a little easier, I would say, than putting on 3D glasses, but again, there's a tolerance, and certain people have different thresholds for it. Augmented reality is really interesting because it takes an element of real life and adds in an imposed element on top of it. So as an example, I remember seeing at a shopping store, they had a mirror set up, and you could walk up to the mirror and you could pick clothing by touching the mirror. And if there was a sweater or a dress or something like that, you could click on it and it would show that sweater on you, and you could change the color and it would augment it in the mirror that you were looking at. Really interesting. That's obviously going to be huge in retail. So augmented reality can enhance the shopping experience, and that's what they want to do. They want the consumer that's standing there to have a real understanding of what it's going to look like. You could do this with furniture now too. You could take a picture of your room and send it into particular furniture manufacturers, and they will superimpose their furniture in real time, and you'll see it right on the screen of what their furniture will look like in your living room. So you can decide if that couch or that picture or whatever makes sense. That's augmented reality. There's an element, a real element, the photo or you or what you're wearing in addition to superimposed. Okay, that's even coming out on applications now. So I have a driving app that I use for navigation, and now there's an element where I can put my phone, I don't have a stand for my car, but if I put it up here, it will use my camera and it will show the road coming up, and it will superimpose the arrows of which way I'm supposed to turn right on my phone on top of the camera picture. Augmented reality. So it's showing me the road and saying, when you get up here, make a right. When you get up here, make a left. So rather than being completely 2D and, you know, cartoon looking, it's superimposing it over real video. 12x increase by 2022 on that. And then obviously one, if you have children, you understand the gaming side of it. It's becoming huge. Internet gaming is just exploding. The numbers are astronomical. They're way into the billions of dollars. There's a whole new sports element coming around from video gaming called esports, where people actually get together to watch other people play video games. And this is I know, I feel the same way. I say, really? You gather to watch someone drive a car? Okay. No, I get it. And again, it's a generational thing. I wouldn't do it. I'd come to a ballpark like this to watch a baseball game, absolutely. But that's what I'm used to. There are others who will gather to watch professional gamers play video games. And there's all kinds of arenas popping up now where they're gathering tens of thousands of people, and this is becoming a huge thing. And obviously a lot of that traffic starts from internet gaming. So it's definitely there. Internet video to TV is another one. We think about all of the content that we have, video content coming off the internet. How many of you have smart TVs? Probably most of us at this point. Put an internet connection on your TV, boom, now I have Netflix, now I have Hulu, now I have Apple TV or whatever I want to put on there, but internet content streamed right to my TV. YouTube. The kids in our house will turn on the TV and watch YouTube videos on the TV, just one after another, after another, after another. I think they're watching shows. No, they're watching YouTube videos of nothing, of other kids doing nothing. But that is television content streamed over the internet directly to your TV. So one last thing on the VNI. The green bars represent high definition videos. So today, 2019, we're pulling about 100 exabytes a month. And for those of you that don't know what an exabyte is, we'll back up a little bit. You remember kilobytes? Those are tiny. That's like sending an email. Then there's megabytes. That's like a picture. And then 1,000 meg is a gig. That gets into the video side of things, the size of video. And then when you get a lot of video, you get into the terabytes. That's 1,000 gig. When we put in storage networks for folks for production, they're typically in the hundreds of terabytes, so to speak. So that's kind of where video production falls today. 1,000 of those, petabyte. The next step up, exabyte. So that's where we're at. If we're putting 100 exabytes of video through the internet right now, and we look at the percentages, right now, HD video is about 46% of the content. And if you look at the tiny blue bar above 2019, that's 4K. So you'll see today it's about 3% of the video that's created. Just in 3 years, it's going to be 22%. And if you look at the amount of HD video, this is interesting. So even though we're moving into 4K, you'll notice in the next 3 years, the amount of HD video doubles. We go from 100 exabytes a month to 200 exabytes a month. And the only one that stays constant is the gray bar on the bottom, which is standard definition. And really what that means is we're going to continue to consume it, but we're not going to create any more SD. That's done. We're done with standard definition creation. We'll keep the video, we'll keep watching it, but now we're just going to make HD video. And as you can see, in 3 years, we're probably going to be making about 75 exabytes a month of 4K. So enough of that. You can look up the numbers. The details are pages and pages of it. Cisco's really good about that every year. So let's get into how do we use it today. What does digital media look like today? And this is when I want to reinforce it's about the content. It's about the message, the storytelling. It's not really the stuff. It's the message and the communication that we're trying to create. So in my work life, I'm part of a team called the Digital Media Practice, and I have a line that says, committed to the life cycle of your content. Sounds really important. And in reality, these are real business problems that organizations have, and my group is a team focused specifically around the digital media side, what the technology is, what it looks like today to help organizations deliver around this. And it's really not easy. It's challenging. I mean, if we take a simple analogy like, I want to show somebody a picture on my phone, so I go in here, and then I'm scrolling through it, and everybody does this. You're scrolling back, scrolling back, scrolling back. Why? Because the only organization you have for your photos is what? The date that it was created. And if you're like me, you've got, I don't know, thousands of pictures on your phone. So every time you want to show someone something, you're scrolling back until about when you think it was, and then hopefully you find it, and if not, you go, well, I don't know, I can't find it. It's on here somewhere, but I give up, okay? That's one person with just their own content. Remember, you probably shot almost all the photos that are on your device, and you still can't find the photo that you're looking for, or you're having a hard time doing it. That's reality. That's the way it is. So now let's take that and apply that same logic to an organizational level. There's 25 of you. You all shoot photos. You don't put them on your iPhone. You throw them on a computer. Well, are all 25 people going to organize their photos the same way? Probably not. How are you going to find anything? How do you even know who shot it? So now it comes down to, hey, who remembers when we did this? Oh, Brian worked on that. We'll go ask Brian if he remembers or if we can find it. And it becomes a, you got to get the guy who you think was there to ask him if he thinks he can find it. And then after all that, you try and pull the content back and repurpose these assets. And this happens every time you're looking for something because you don't have the organizational tools put in place or a process to help you quickly go to it. Or another thing is you just don't even know it exists. One of the things that I found interesting was, I think the number was 33% of companies admit to recreating content every year because they can't find the content they already paid to create the first time. 33%. Yeah, we did that one training video that talked about this process that would work for our company, and we have some new employees. Boy, it'd sure be great to show them that video. Does anybody know where that video is? Can't find it. Can't find it. Can't find it. So you get to the point where you just give up because you're convinced that something really bad happened. Somebody recreates the video because they just pull the plug on, we can't look for it any longer, we have to train these people, go shoot another one and just label it better this time. And we'll hope that the next time the employees come in, we're better at finding it. So these are real world problems, okay? Using the iPhone and scrolling is just an analogy because we all understand it. We all do that. But these are challenges that organizations have. Working around digital media isn't really simple. It can be because really what it comes down to is typically everything that my team works on is around three things. It's computers, software, and networks. Most of the solutions that we put together involve computers, software, and networks. And we help solve business problems around that. But it's understanding what the problem is and then developing a process and a solution so that the outcome is what they're looking for. It's not just, oh, I've got this thing you should buy and it'll solve your problem. It's not stuff anymore. You can't, we used to work that way. We used to be able to buy something to change a process, and then we changed how we did things to work around this box, and that delivered what we were looking for. And as long as everybody was willing to work the way that box did it, then we had a process. But as soon as you get somebody that says, well, I don't like the way that box works, so I'm just going to do it my way, now we don't have any consistency, and the end result is we have one flavor here and we have one flavor there. Those boxes really don't solve the problems today. It's computers, software, and networks. And we have to figure out workflows that everyone has agreed to adopt, or we really never get to a resolution. To get to the efficiency, everybody has to be on board. So that's what I get to do for my work life. So let's get into the how do we use it today. I'm going to get into some specific examples. And one of them, just around digital signage, let's look at how many different applications we have just in one technology segment, all right? So the first thing I have up there is corporate communication. And you think about how monumental that is, and we talk to organizations about putting in digital signage, and our director of brand marketing said something to me a couple of weeks ago that really stuck with me, and he said, Craig, so I was talking to him about the cost of signage. He was asking me questions, and I said, well, sometimes cost deters companies from doing it. And he said, there's a cost associated with not communicating effectively with your employees. And I thought about that for a second. There's a cost associated with not being able to communicate. And I instantly got it because I remember specifically, it was just days before that, I had a customer come to us. They were asking for signage, and the reason was corporate communication. And the first thing I always say is, well, tell me the problem that you have right now, and let's see if we can help you solve it. And they said, here's what happened to us. A week ago, we had a change in our healthcare policy, and we had to get this message out to the employees. So somebody in HR drafted an email that clearly spelled out what every employee had to do. And there was an action required. They sent out this email. 3,500 employees got this email. 85 of them opened it out of 3,500. So they didn't really have a fix for that. What do you send the same email out again and hope 85 more open it? No, they realized that they had a communication problem. The method that they were using of someone in HR crafting an email and sending it out to 3,500 people, no one was interested in looking at that, and everyone glanced over it. So they started asking us, can we utilize space in our building to broadcast communication and messages and HR information, relevant information to the employees in common meeting spaces? What about the cafeteria? What about the break room? What about the hallways and the lobbies and all these different areas? So this is how the conversation started. They had a communication problem. They couldn't communicate effectively to their employees. It's a challenge, and they asked us, help us with this messaging problem that we have right now. The technology side of this is really easy. Then what it came down to is, who's going to actually be responsible for this content? Let's get them in the room and find out what kind of messaging they need and where they think they need it. And we'll put the technology in to support the delivery of that messaging. We'll put a server in that allows you to create all of that. You can store it on it. Your content, your corporate messaging team can create this and send it over. But somebody has to be responsible for what's actually going to be up there. Putting the technology there is easy, but what content is going to go up there? So their first ask was, just help us get this messaging across. So that's just one example. If we look, what about lobbies and showrooms? Think about when you walk in the front of a building and all they have is a poster on the wall and you don't know anything about the organization. They have an opportunity while you're waiting for your escort to come get you and take you in. They have an opportunity to educate you right there and then. This is the history of our company. This is what we stand for. This is what we do. This is what we do really good. Use that space. I'm always disappointed when I walk into a technology company, technology-related company, and don't see any kind of messaging in the lobby. I want to walk up and say, what? You guys are missing a huge opportunity, especially when you look around and see people sitting there. What are you going to do? Give them magazines? You could. That'll pacify their time. But why not put displays up and educate them on, this is what our company's about. Take advantage of that. Think about when you go into a retail space today. A supermarket. You walk in to get groceries. Everywhere there's signs about this and that, and this is on sale, and don't forget about this. They're using dynamic visual messaging to capture your attention and maybe spur you to buy something. Retail is the same way. Walk into a Walmart or any big superstore. There's going to be dynamic displays all over the place directing you on areas and around things that they think would be interesting to you. And they really want to pay attention to what's grabbing on, what's working, and they want to continue crafting the message around there. So it's all about the content. Kiosks, interactive solutions. This is a big one as well. Think about walking into a building, there's no one there, but you want to be able to call someone specifically. This is what we call a virtual assistant. This is becoming very, very popular with companies because they don't necessarily have big, gigantic, expensive lobbies staffed anymore. Sometimes it's just an empty room, and it could be a kiosk with a virtual assistant. We went into, was in Michigan, there was a glass company that I went into a couple of weeks ago, and that's exactly what it was. It was a virtual assistant where we could call the individual that we wanted to meet with We walked in, there was nobody there but a computer screen, and we were able to touch, find his name, and call him, and that's how he came out and escorted us back. Very, very, very popular. Wayfinding, same thing. You can walk into a shopping mall or an airport or wherever, someplace that you might not necessarily understand the navigation and where you're going. Click here, look up the store name, and it might even map out. Here you are, here's the store, walk down here, make a left, go up a flight of stairs, and it's on the right-hand side. That's wayfinding. We get requests for that all the time. Buildings, shopping malls, all kinds of different places. Help with the navigation where we don't have people right now. You can have multi-floor maps, and you can allow individuals to come in and tap on companies or types of things and help them get there. It's huge in retail, obviously. Creative display solutions, menu boards, that's obvious. Wherever you go, you're going to see digital signs now that have the menus. This is a great way to dynamically change the content, whether it's fast food, other kinds of restaurants, it could be casinos, you name it. You're able to dynamically change the content based on time of day, what's available, what do we want to put on sale. This is the quickest way to get that content out there. What if you're a chain and you have 12 different locations and every day something changes? One content server immediately blasts the content messaging to all of them. All different applications just around signage. Digital media, one side of it, but think about all the different things just with signage. And the last thing I want to mention on signage, what about the real-time data integration? What if you're a manufacturing plant? There's a tire company in Ohio. When you walk in, it shows all of the statistics of what's being manufactured. How many tires did we make today? What's our safety record? How many of these did we make? How long has this been in process? What's our most productive week? All of the statistics of everything that they do is right up in the front lobby when you walk in. And that's probably to show not only the employees, but also the customers that are walking in. It's very interesting. Real-time information can be taken, weather feeds, traffic, real-time data from systems that your organization has on-prem. Who's in today? Who's coming in tomorrow? What information do we want to pull from to put on there? All of this stuff is available in real time. It's all about the messaging. Let's go to the next application. Streaming in IPTV, live video content. Okay, when we're talking about signage, we're really talking about creating elements, messaging. Now we're going to move to the live side of digital media. What if our CEO has an important meeting that we want to get out? How are we going to do that? Everybody's been on video calls that might seemingly be important, and all of a sudden the video locks up, or the audio starts to stutter and get all messed up and you can't tell what's going on. Why? Because it's not always as easy as you think to get this platform and these solutions done. We've all been there. We've all been on interesting calls where the very important meeting that's supposed to be company-wide really doesn't happen at all because somewhere 2-3 minutes into the meeting the whole platform falls down. And we've had a lot of customers come to us saying, we need help with the streaming solution because this is what happened yesterday. And our executives who are all ready to shell out this information, who they were talking for 30 to 40 minutes, and then after they were done talking, I had to tell them that 3 minutes into their speech, the platform died and nobody saw anything that they had to say. Oops. Well, now a fire has been lit and somehow someone has been tasked with, you better fix this problem before I give the next one of these because that's never going to happen again. So we start having these conversations because really streaming, it's not overly complicated, but you can't just take a platform like YouTube and say, well, we're just going to stream it up to YouTube and everybody can click on the link and watch it from there. YouTube works great, right? What could be wrong? YouTube doesn't go down. True. YouTube probably isn't the problem, but think about this. Let's say you have an organization with 3,000 people in 10 different buildings, and you wanted to use YouTube as your streaming platform for message delivery. And you tell everybody, okay, at 2 o'clock today, there's a really important message. I want you all to click on this link and watch it. So 3,000 people click on a YouTube link, and they're all streaming the same signal down from the cloud through the firewall onto the network, basically just crushing your network. And now your IT folks suddenly have a whole different problem that's just arisen because their network just fell down. Okay, that's again a problem that's solvable. But we have to have the conversations about what are you trying to do, let's talk about the scenario, and let's architect something. And what it ends up looking like is kind of a hybrid solution most likely. There's purpose-built hardware that goes on-prem, you talk to the IT folks to make sure that they're okay with the security, and then we evenly distribute the content on the network so that we're not crushing all of the outbound information. Common problem. We need to deliver not only to the people on-prem, but think about the remote workers. What about mobile phones and tablets? What about gathering all of that content and getting the message out across it? Same thing. This is how we need to deliver our messaging today. It's pretty bright. Looks good. So, on the streaming side, we're much more flexible, and this is why we have to accommodate these outside users, because this isn't the Flintstone era anymore. We really need to get to everybody on whatever device that they're on and get the message to them reliably. And it requires a little bit of engineering. It's not that easy. So let's keep on the streaming side for one more second and talk about the consumer end of streaming. And I've got some interesting numbers here. So Netflix is almost just a common household name. Okay, when I'm recommending something that's on Netflix, I don't even ask people, hey, do you have Netflix? Because I just assume that everybody does, because at some point your son or daughter asked you for it and you ended up with it and you don't care, so you just pay for it. It's whatever, $12.95 a month. And most people that I know have Netflix. So when I looked into the numbers, right now they have 158 million subscribers globally. So if we do some quick math and we think, all right, $12.99 a month, 158 million subscribers, they're bringing in about $25 billion a year for Netflix subscriptions. That's a staggering number. Huge. But Netflix isn't the only one in this business. They are probably the most committed to content right now based on numbers. And I say that because I looked up what their annual spend is for original programming. I wasn't sure who the largest was. Who wants to guess what Netflix spends per year on programming? Throw out a number. Come on, take a guess. $1 billion? Close. 13 billion. That's how much they're going to spend this year on original programming. $13 billion. And unbelievably, they're not the only ones spending real money. Amazon, $5 billion this year on original programming. HBO, we all know Game of Thrones and just the wildly successful programs that they have. Their numbers are going up because AT&T bought Warner. So now their budget's just through the roof because now they have a bigger bank and they've had a lot of success with the shows that they've had. Facebook and Apple are both at about $1 billion per year. I didn't know Facebook even made content. I thought it was just other people's videos, but apparently Facebook actually pays money to create original programming for Facebook. No idea what it is, but they're going to spend $1 billion on content this year. Really interesting. Guess who else is joining the streaming market later this year? Disney. It's going to be huge. Their catalog, you think about things like Marvel, Star Wars, Simpsons, there's so much content that they have. Their service is going to start at $7 a month, introductory price. That's how you get them in. But $7 a month for Disney Plus is what they're going to call it. So they're jumping in, saying we know that this streaming thing is obviously, this is what the people want. This is how they want it. They want VOD. They want to watch what they want, when they want, where they want it. And currently Disney's not taking any of that revenue. Excuse me. So that's something that you're going to see later this year. One second. And the funny chart on the right, what to watch on Netflix. When you have 5 minutes, Google that. It's really about 5 pages long, and it's just a comical look at how you actually find content on Netflix. And it starts with, are we watching TV with the kids? Do they have to watch it? Or do our children scare easily? Just one of those. It helps you navigate around. It's very funny. It's worth a 2-minute look. But anyways, the point is all of these providers realize that this streaming and video on demand is really only going up, and there's so much revenue that now even companies like Disney are trying to jump on board and grab onto this revenue stream. So we're looking at it more from a corporate perspective, but the infrastructure and the technology is driven by a lot of these numbers, okay? When Netflix is bringing in $25 billion, and actually Netflix right now is probably the largest provider of 4K content. Once Disney gets on board, I would imagine that's going to change because they'll have the ability to do 4K as well on most of their work, and HDR. So for those of you who haven't heard that, high dynamic range is another protocol in video that is really a wonderful addition. So if you've ever seen high resolution video in high dynamic range, it's very, very vivid. So the blacks are very, very dark, the whites are whiter, the shadows look better. It's just the depth is much, much nicer. It'll be a significant improvement. I'm not seeing a lot of content that's HDR right now. The set has to be compatible, and you have to have HDR content in order to see it, but it's definitely going to be a big, big improvement over standard HD video. All right, so let's look at the last element or application, and this is really the workflow. This is what I talked about. This is the behind the scenes stuff. We create a lot of content. Those numbers I showed earlier back that up. We're creating tons and tons of video. We're not creating any less. We're just making more and more and more of it. And there isn't a manual on best practices. So when organizations go down this path and corporate communications says, hey, we're going to do these training videos, and sales says, well, we need these, and then the technical people say, well, we're going to create our own videos here. Everyone has stuff all over the place. Somehow we need to pull this all together. We need to manage it. We need to know how to find it. We need to know how to repurpose it. We record everything. If we're going to record it, where does it go? Who determines where that content goes and how we find it? And then the other big part of it is, how do we know it's safe? This is a real big problem. We've gone in and looked at organizations and they say, hey, we're having workflow problems. We'd like you to come in and maybe help us establish some best practices. Awesome. Tell me what you're doing. Well, I've got a bunch of these USB drives sitting on my desk, and Fred's got some too, and we just fit our stuff wherever we want to on all of these. Okay. So how many do you have? Well, like 50 of them. Okay. How do you know where things are at? Well, we put tape on the outside of the drive so we kind of know what's on there. And based on what the label of the tape is, and we know which one to plug in, and that's how we find our stuff. Okay? Do you have another copy of it other than this $99, Western Digital USB drive? No, that's all we have. That's the only one. What if you drop it or break it, or what if it just dies because hard drives aren't made to last forever? They do fail. Oh, that would be bad. And that's the reality to them of, wow, I guess we're really not protecting our content. And even if the next conversation is, all right, let's put something in place, I still always recommend you have to have your content in more than one location. Because if something happens there, even if it's great, purpose-built, reliable, fault-tolerant storage, if there's a catastrophe in that environment, all of your intellectual property is gone. So if you're an organization that actually owns your intellectual property, let's say you're a sports team, like I'll use the Vikings as an example. They have 300 terabytes we dropped in, a gigantic storage bucket. All the content that you see in the game and on broadcasts on television, all that stuff goes to a giant 300 terabyte SAN, and then every night at midnight we copy everything all over to another 300 terabyte bucket that's in another building, so that if there was a problem at the first location, this is content that can't be replaced. These are interviews with players and things like that, historical footage, all this stuff, everything they're shooting. If there's a problem and that went down, we could never replace that content. That would be a huge problem. So every night it's replicated over to a second tier so that it's protected. Safe way to work. You want to make sure that you're backed up in the event of a catastrophe. So on the bottom I say value the SMEs. Those are subject matter experts. These are the people, you may seek them out, you may go to an integrator to find them, or you may have your own subject matter experts as part of your organization, but you need to value the understanding of those subject matter experts and listen to them, because they can help you avoid the problems. What they really want to do is they want to simplify the complex for you and develop these outcomes. So this is the last thing I'm going to get to on the application. We're running into this a lot, and I think everyone will understand this. So we have a corporate communications group, and in there they're creating content. They're creating marketing material. They're creating videos. They're creating PDFs. They're creating all this stuff. And then we also have human resource group that they're creating different types of content, but this stuff is all important. Maybe there's forms that they create that have to go out. Then we also have the sales team. Those are the folks in the field that ultimately are really consuming the content, finding it, and sharing it with their customers. At the very end, how do you organize all this content, and how do you get it so that these different groups within organizations can actually find the content that they're looking for? There's overarching search tools now that we're starting to put in place that are combining completely separate groups of information, of content around different individuals who have completely different work streams. The creative team doesn't work anything like HR or sales. They all work in completely different fashions. But if we have an overarching search tool that enables all of them to see the content that they're entitled to see, this can dramatically change the end result. And what we find is we're able to keep process a lot better by doing this rather than letting everyone just run on their own. So as an example, sales, if they can't get the latest version of the messaging and they can't find it and they don't know where to go, guess what they're going to keep showing people? The one that they had from 2 years ago. And then they're going to find out, oh, what do you mean that's not any good? Well, that's the one I have on my iPad. Well, right, but we haven't used that in over a year. Well, I didn't know any better. Problem. So this is what we're now trying to solve, these interesting challenges about how do you bring all these elements together? How do you make sure that the guy in the sales field has the content that he needs? All right, last topic, day 2. Where are we going from here? What technology is on the horizon that's going to enable us to change the way we do digital media? Everything we've been talking about is all technology that's available today. Where's it going? What's next? The first one is obvious. It's metrics and analytics, all right? We want to know if I send a video out there, if I push an email 3,500 times, how many people opened it? Well, that's easy. We can do that. We could do that with video too. If we send a link out, how many people actually watched the video? Did they watch the whole thing or did they just watch part of it? Was the average viewing time? And also, I'd like to know the device type. If we push it out to our staff of 3,000, how many of them watch it on a PC and how many of them watch it on a mobile device? Let's know that, because on the back end, we can keep those metrics to start tailoring our message so that it's more and more appropriate. Ultimately, if you're creating content, the idea is for people to consume it. You don't make something because you think it's a great idea and only you're going to watch it. No, you want it consumed. You want the audience to watch the content that you're creating. So if we need to know what type of device they're on and tailor for that, that's fine. We can look at those metrics right now. We can gather that. The next challenge, though, is around this, and I use a Roomba as kind of a fun analogy because I get this. I want my room vacuumed. I just don't want to do the work myself. The same is actually starting to hold true in digital media. And really what it is it's time versus money, okay? That's what a Roomba is all about. I'll buy one because I don't have to vacuum my room. It's just going to happen for me. I'm willing to spend money to solve that problem. Now, your personal time can be a little harder to put a value on, but if we think about an employee, there's a dollar amount that we could put on each one of you of what you cost your organization to be there or to do work. So if we talk about spending a little bit of money to save you time, if that time benefit outweighs the money we spent, well then that's a win-win situation. We should look at doing that. So this is really where we are today. Now the biggest change in digital media that I'm seeing is customers are asking about AI and machine learning, artificial intelligence. And this is a regular conversation. Customers are saying, hey, I've got a bunch of content. I really don't have time to tag it, but it would be great to know who's in that video, what they talked about, if they were happy or if they were sad, and relevant information. When was it shot? What other elements were in there? Is there any way a computer can look at that information and just help me tag that content? Yes. That's where AI is coming in. And the 4 that I have listed here, Amazon Web Services, Azure, Google Analytics, IBM Watson, those engines are already up there. They're actually spinning right now. And the way that we're utilizing them is we're tying them into asset management platforms with organizations, and we're sending content up to these analytics engines, gathering information, and then pulling it back down and associating it with content. So I can send a video clip up to Azure, run it through the processing engine. When it comes back down, it says, I see clouds, I see water, I see a Corvette, I see this logo. It's going to tell me what it believes is in that clip, and it can even do scene detection and break down these elements every time the camera scene changes. There's a lot of things that we can do. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But is it better than nothing? Is it a foundation? Is it a starting point? Absolutely, yes. So right now it's a service that we're starting to tie into asset management platforms to allow us to get information without having to do all of this work. Okay? It's the Roomba thing. I want my content tagged, I just don't want to take the time to tag it. Make sense? You seem confused. Does it make sense? Now, any questions on that side of it? Have any of you used this part yet? Because I want to open it up. This is really kind of the end of the discussion, but I want to open it up to questions on this side. And what I've notated over on the right, that's a video, and you'll notice, well, it's kind of hard to see, but the sentiment of the speaker was captured. There's also a full transcription of everything that was said. And you can search keywords, and it'll take you right to that point on the video. So the analytics engine analyzes everything, stores the information against it, provides it back on the platform. Yes? So the question was, is it executed after you upload your video to YouTube? So depending on the platform you're using, what has to happen, the analytics engine is in the cloud. If your platform is in the cloud, then it's going to be communication from your platform to the analytics and back to your platform. If your platform is on premise, you're going to push that clip up to the cloud for the analytics, and you're going to take the information back down. You do have to push the content up, but then the data comes back down to your platform. So depending on how your infrastructure is set up, determines you're always going to have to make a hook to a platform like this. And there are others. These are just probably the 4 biggest that I picked, and they're operational right now, and they all have clearly developed APIs that they'll tell you, this is how you talk to our platform. If you want to send a clip up, you can use your system, send it up here, we'll give you this information back down. You then parse that information and add it into your search platform. The one that is over on the right is Microsoft's Stream platform. That's what you're looking at over there. So they have a video delivery platform. It's okay, it's part of the O365 bundle. And it will automatically transcribe and give you that information because it's all in one platform. The challenge there is we can't really customize it the way that we need for a lot of video production. So we tend to find the best tool for the job for the search engine and then tie that into the analytics, then bring it back down. And I'm running long, so I think I need to get to the end here. So first off, thank you for spending the time with us. Second, remember, the digital media side, it's all about the outcome that you're looking for, the message, getting to the audience. The technology part is there. We can help you architect that, but the conversations aren't going to be about stuff. It's going to be about what messages are you trying to create, who's the audience, how do we get to them. That's typically how it works. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.